So yeah, I mean, I can start. So basically, Eternal is the idea behind it actually come from my early investigation of Ethereum, where as a game developer, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I mean, I was really impressed by Ethereum. So I was thinking what we could do, and I was not aware of all the projects out there in game. I was not aware of Huntercoin or all these things. I knew of Bitcoin, but I dismissed quite early because I was not into it. Not the For some reason. So it's only with Ethereum that I started to look at all the blockchain stuff. But one thing that I wanted to make a game that will be unstoppable, that will be, and then I quickly realized, oh, actually, it's quite limiting. And so then instead, I did something else. But then things have evolved since then, and so Eternal came back. Basically, is the realization that we can do it. We can do something at and with the limitation, okay, we have to look around. But so Eternal, I mean, it's basically a dungeon game where every action are transaction on a blockchain. And so it means that all the logic of the game is basically the rule of it are driven by the smart contract that run on the EVM chain. So ideally, the ideal scenario is that this chain will have some roll-up technology or maybe plasma, whatever, that will make it actually fully decentralized. But at the same time, the realization was that why wait? Why not actually start to experiment with the idea and see what we can achieve? So that's really what Eternal is now. Is basically looking at, okay, we can use a side chain like XDAI or a plasma chain like Matic and make the game using normal solidity so that it could be easily translated later when technology can be fully decentralized. But then obviously, even when it's run on these side chains that have some, you still have limitation because I mean, most of them have a block time. Some is 5-second block time, and some is a bit faster. But yeah, so we made the alpha version of the game. Maybe I should share the screen to give idea. So that was a presentation I did at ETC, and basically one of the inspiration was the mud game. At some point, it actually started somehow. I mean, the first demo was actually a text based only, but we realized quickly that we need a map for people to move around. So then we added a map, and then it became more graphical. And so that's the alpha you're running. I mean, some screenshot of it. And so you basically move into a dungeon. So every move, every change of room is an action on the contract. So the contract will check if there is an exit, if there is a door, do you have the key to use that, and then the combat. And so the combat is also all the rule is on chain. I mean, actually for the alpha, we did a shortcut, but we designed it that it can be implemented on chain. So it, even though it's on chain, it could relatively be complicated. I mean, interesting enough. So actually, we think that yes, the combat is interesting. Like you have different. I mean, I could go into the detail maybe later if you want. And then this is the map that was generated by player moving around. So the same one property of this dungeon is that it's procedurally generated. So when you go to a room that have not been discovered before, it uses the future block hash, actually the block hash of that block, to generate the exit of the new room and whether there is a monster in it or not. So that the team that we are. I mean, we are expanding now. Maybe what can I? So I mean, yeah. Some of the reason to do this kind of game. I mean, I don't want to go too much into detail of that. Yeah, But yeah, so that yeah, maybe here's better. Oops. Oh, I can only go forward. Oops. So yeah, we mentioned here the standard that we use, and yeah, here is the way it works. Are you still hearing me actually? Yeah. Okay, good. Because sometimes my connection drops. So basically, the way it works is that we have like the client is basically a web page, and then every user action goes through the blockchain. But then we have a backend. But the backend here is only purpose is to improve the user experience. So you will have a WebSocket to make sure that when user joins, you know that the other player are there with you, and you can see them in real time. And then the blockchain cache is so that the client. This is very important for the map because it will be too expensive with the current like Node API to fetch all the room that is available. So we cache them on the backend, and you can then. But every action is actually performed directly on the blockchain without any intermediary. So technically, you could build your own front end and without caching, and or do your own caching. And so the onboarding, I mean, I guess the best will be to show the game. So let's say I start, um, yeah, so this is the game. I create a character. Um, so this is really the flow that you will go through as a player, and kind of set the tone with a bit of story. I'm going to skip, and then you have to basically create a wallet at that point. So we are using Portis, but we are investigating other options, and we will also support like MetaMask. But for the alpha, it was important for us to minimize the friction, and so for MetaMask, it's still hard to switch network. So I hope it's not. Oh yeah, it was important that yeah, for MetaMask you still have to change network, so it's not easy. So yeah, so I got a wallet, and then I have this key that is kind of a invite only option. So you have to have that key for now to participate in the alpha. And then this is a warning that tell you that now once you pay, so here I will pay basically $1 to it's on the testnet, but basically that will be the same cost if we were to run on XDAI, which is EVM compatible sidechain. And yeah, from that point on, you have $1 basically stored in your like a kind of a smart contract account specific to the game. Yeah, okay, wrong. And yeah, from that point on, you are in the dungeon, and all your action will consume part of the food you have. So basically, you have this food balance that represents the amount that you spend already. Like when you spend $1, you get automatically this amount. And then you have this map, and you can look around. You can even see other players here. So actually, I have another player that are already set up here. So if I move, so I am the guy here, the red one. And if I move down, so it will take around 5 seconds for a new block to come. And so you will see the other guy moving. And me, I will also move there. So this is the space at which, yeah, the economy is moving. And then as you move, you encounter monsters. So there is this monster, and when you fight monster, you get items. Items give you more power. and then you explore kind of dungeon. And we have a unique item in that world. So if you are the one, after you can, since all of these are tokens, you can then go to either to a marketplace on that sidechain. Okay, here is a monster. I have to attack. So the way it works is that every weapons, every gear give you a set of action. So this one you have 2 actions, and they have different values. And so the strategy to kill the monster is to make sure you use the right one at the right time. And the similar thing. Each so you have a attack gear and a defense. And the attack gear. So the nice thing about this combat mechanism is that the complexity of this mechanism is implemented as data. The rule of the fighting is very simple, but then because weapon can have a wide range of different action types, then it allows us to have lots of variety in weapons while keeping the rules simple for the smart contract. Yeah, so I mean, these monsters are quite easy at the beginning, and then they get stronger, and then you need this more powerful weapon to kill them. Okay, it hurt me a bit, but I killed him, and now I get the loot and I get an item. And then I almost level up. So when I level up, I can, yes, for example, now if I want it to put the shield I got it, I need to be a level 1. So I need to explore the dungeon further. So I guess that cover most of it really. I guess maybe from there we could do like more like question answer thing, or if there anything you want to know more about. I mean, for example, here I mentioned the way we deal with randomness. If you are interested.
Well, did you guys take any inspiration from any particular game, or was this just like completely from the ground up that you guys built the idea?
So mostly ground up, but then there was few inspiration, sometime a bit, along the way. There was also this book, Designing Virtual World, from the creator of Mud One, like the first MUD created. And then few game, but nothing in particular really. I mean, for the combat mechanism was actually a board game called Dungeon Twister. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it has the same idea of like you have to I mean, these kind of mechanics are really good also for PvP. So that's why we plan to have PvP later, because it's like rock paper scissors, but more involved. And then when it's against a human, you have another dimension to it.
You're still screen sharing too.
Okay. Yeah, that will have been weird, I guess. Like,
Yes.
question?
So when you simulate the combat, are you? Is this done on a smart contract? Sorry, I might have missed that part before. But where are you using gas at any point of the gameplay? And if
Yeah.
so, where?
So basically, the gas is a food. So when you pay $1, that $1 gets transformed into $1 worth of gas in your account smart contract. And then every time you make a move, it will basically so we use meta transaction basically to perform, and the gas is deduced from your food. So your food get low and low and low, and then when you reach 0, then you have to refill. So that's how basically we abstract away the gas.
Are you thinking about like being able to trade food, or maybe discover some food, or some level of like meta, gameplay?
I mean, technically it can, because it's it will be either the native token of the chain or maybe a stable coin. And so they could already trade that. But yeah, to put in the game, I mean, yes, there is nothing that will block us from doing that. As a we didn't do that now. But yeah, we could say like, oh, you want to trade your food, and then the only difference I would say is that it's kind of a bit external. But I mean, it could be because what we do with food is that it's not really belong to the character. So the thing about this dungeon, yeah, that I didn't mention really, is that you there is a character on the player. As a player, you will own a character, and this is a character that go into the dungeon. And when the character is in the dungeon, it's not under your control. I mean, it's under your control, but not under your ownership. So it means that if you don't manage to escape the dungeon, maybe you die or maybe something else happens, then you basically lose your character and whatever what he was owning. So, but for the food, we make it outside. Is the reason why is because you paid for it, and we feel like it's important that as a player you still own that, because else it will prevent you from putting more money. So you can always get it out if you want.
Cool. Awesome.
And that food, since it's outside, they can use that on the next one. Is what you're saying? So like if they
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, when you die, we still plan to have. So we are still considering few options, but we might still allow you to reuse your character, but maybe with less XP. But you could also create potentially multiple character, and then the food should be shared across at least. Or maybe you might need to do an action to transfer it. Yeah, most likely. But at least you will have ownership of it.
With if you're saying that basically food is basically the gas for the underlying network, and that's, I'm thinking in my head, so it's kind of external. And if you were walking around inside the dungeon, if you're finding food, it's like you're finding gas. And I'm kind of, I guess I'm struggling to think how that's going to work, because I kind of expect the food, the gas, the dollars to be external to the game. So you wouldn't find that inside the dungeon from like a prize. You know, if you were walking around the game, I don't expect you just to find the gas for your transactions unless the developers maybe put it in there by hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the idea is that, so yeah, there is a coin, there is few currencies there is in the game. There is the keys that allow you to open the doors. There is a coin that allow you to potentially, like, will be probably the easiest currency to transact with other player, but we will also have use in the game. There will be some shops inside that you could do stuff, you could potentially repair weapons, yeah, depending of what we choose to do. But yeah, but then yeah, for food we could still do. So there is few options. We thinking about still allowing. So for example, when you make a move, one of the business model we were thinking of is that part of the gas is given to us. And so what we could do also is that not only some part is given to us, but some part is given to a pool, and that pool gets redistributed randomly in the room. So then you find food is actually basically your fee that you paid, and so there is a way to implement it like that as well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Or maybe on death you lose like one food and that goes to the pool or something. So you're saying the food that actually exists is what has been bought by other players, or like like that's a plan at least.
Yeah,
I see.
or yeah. Also we can use it like for the players themselves. But yeah, I guess that's how it works.
Can you meet other people in the world?
Yeah. So I was showing you the demo where like it's me and me playing. So I don't have the screen share, but basically like because there is only one network it run on. so it's inherently multiplayer. The combat are multiplayer. Everything is multiplayer in the game. So for the combat, the way it works, that was a tricky one. So it's I remember talking with on the forum of multi-user dungeon forums, and I was trying to get an idea of how they implement combat and everything. And when I was trying to explain what my requirement was, it was weird because the thing is that when you play Eternal, it's like it's multiplayer, but the turn, there is no turn. Anybody can play out of turn. So we had to come up with a way that doesn't make like, oh, you make an action and suddenly something happens. So it was important for the cards. So when you a monster also have a set of cards, and for the fighting to make sense, you need to be able to know what potential card he will play next. But if there was another player coming in at the same time that will change this card, then you will be confused as a player. So what we did is that the monster life is shared across the players, but the set of cards that they use is specific to one player.
Okay.
So they had like little were those doorways in because I'm just trying to remember some of the map stuff. There looked like little castle like things, but there was also static monsters, like a blob or something. What are those static looking blobs that have the faces on them?
Yeah, so this is a monster. So yeah, I guess this one. Maybe I should share the screen again. Oops. Oh, yeah. So it's a bit slow to show, but yeah, basically this monster. No monster. Yeah, so the static image of monster are currently the way we show the monster when you encounter them and then you fight. It's a bit like the this kind of game. I don't know if you play like the middle one. A game I play on the NES a long time ago. So it's a bit like this. You encounter this monster and then you have to fight them or you can escape. Did I answer your question? Or?
Yeah. So I originally thought. I guess I didn't see the skeleton that you attacked. I thought it was more like Pokemon, where they just appear or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess as well you could make it 3D. I don't know if you've ever seen the classic game Dungeon Master, which is just like that, except was like the first 3D RPG like a really long time ago. But yeah, so it would be like a dungeon crawler where you're actually obviously that's just like a front end thing, but it might make it like more immersive as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the nice thing about 2D is like maybe it reduces a bit the scale of the project as well, but and 3D have on the web also on the mobile it could be less.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like rendered 3D, but I'll send you a link anyway, and you can have a look at that. But it works really well.
Oh, like isometric.
Isometric.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't mean that. But
I mean, yeah, you're right. I think Dungeon Master, because you shared the link before. It's not isometric.
Yeah.
It does look 3D. But I forget what
it's fake 3D. It's fake 3D basically.
Right.
Yeah, okay. It's a bit like the game I just showed, no? Like.
Okay, wait. I think I know what you mean, Andy. Basically, it's 2D in terms of mechanics. It's just that it looks 3D when you walk around.
Yeah.
But you're always on a plane.
Okay, yeah, I see. What is it? Yeah. So this is a bit the inspiration too, actually. But yeah, without the 3D thing. The main difference, I guess, is that in this game you actually don't move room to room. You are into a space that is bigger, so it will feel weird that you are some. I mean, I guess we could, but we thought about having something like that. Not we didn't spend too much time because of the 3D aspect that will. Yeah, but one of the things is that if you move, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, we should probably think again about that.
I guess because it runs on mobile, I guess it probably runs quite nicely as it is.
Yeah, and also the map is so important for the players that I think, I mean, for combat, it could make sense to have this more 3D, more maybe immersive version. But we realized like the map was so important for the player that it took control place here now. But
Yeah, like another thing, what you could do, I think probably discussed that as well, is when you go in a room. Obviously, at the moment, you're just like one character, you're in the whole room. Yeah, if you did expand it, you could go in a room which is actually a lot bigger, and then in the room you just move around in real time, but that's nothing to do with the blockchain. And then you could do like some illusionary tricks like that, I guess, as well, couldn't you?
yeah, we thought about that. I mean, the main I guess one reason we didn't do that way is that then you have the problem of the difference between blockchain action and non-blockchain action, which then we needed some way to make it clear. Like, for example, when you move, if you can move around and suddenly when you want to go to the next room, you have a delay. How do we deal with that? That was the main trick.
Yeah, we had this a similar problem where it was hard for players to understand what goes on, like what is a blockchain action and what is like a non-blockchain action, and they were constantly asking. So I think for non-technical people, just keeping it one style, like either it's all on the blockchain or it's all off chain, and then you submit the whole game afterwards, is probably better because it's still kind of new technology. But yeah, even with simple things like forming a squad that has nothing to do with submission, it was kind of difficult. So I actually kind of understand that point of not wanting to confuse the player about what is on or off action.
Yeah, no, it's definitely groundbreaking, and you can see that this can be expanded like later once you've mastered this game. Then yeah, you could do anything that you wanted, really. It's really impressive.
Have you thought of because it looks like you go into like the battle scene, which is just the picture with the actions at the bottom. So that kind of reminds me of the old. Well, I guess all of them still do it, but the old Final Fantasy, where like you're walking around on the map, then it brings up your crew, and then you're fighting against the crew. Have you thought, because it seems like it would be kind of easy. I mean, you have to do a lot more art, but
You mean like to do the 2D view where like side
yeah,
way?
where they got the two crews and then they just like randomly. I guess for you would be the one.
Yeah, that would be a nice way to show other players as well.
All right.
That would be because only, I mean, in the first alpha, like we don't really see well the other player fighting, but you still see them coming. But yeah, maybe this way could be interesting. We could see all the players fighting the monsters. Yeah, we were also thinking to have multiple monster. Currently, it's like one monster. I mean, the idea was to fake it basically. It's still one monster, but it has 3 heads, for example, but the heads are actually 3 bodies on the display, something like that. Yeah.
Sorry, you said something like if two people were to enter a room at the same time, if they see a monster, is it two separate monsters at the moment?
No, it's one monster.
One monster.
It shares a life, but because of the way the combat mechanism works, it doesn't share the card, the deck. So it's like the monster duplicate his deck, and then the deck are played only against each player. So then the player are not confused, because if you see especially when the deck roll over back. Like you expect, okay, you have only this low defense card, so I will beat him with that low attack card but big damage. And then some other player came in and reset the deck of the monster, then you will be very frustrated. So we had to do that. We had to make sure that the deck are separate.
Ah, okay, separate decks, but then just one life. So it means that if you have a really strong player, they could kill the monster quite quickly. Like if you're kind of teamed up somehow, maybe.
I think that's it. Dropping out, like you said. He's back.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my connection. I knew it would switch off at some point. What you were saying, yeah, they share. So I was saying they share the life point among characters.
Cool. No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. I was in a dungeon one time and I was waiting for someone to come and help me, but I guess I got impatient and I died. But I was kind of curious as to how it would work because I was there and I was waiting and I was like, oh, maybe I should keep fighting or whatever, or I could wait. And I was just kind of wondering that whole time when I was playing whether someone else would see the exact same monster or whether it be a separate instance, so separate health and everything. It's cool. How big is your dungeon, or how big can it be?
So it's basically infinite. Like there is we are still thinking how we deal with that, like whether we encourage or maybe we instead try to focus on something. So we have this idea of it's not even in the alpha, but of floor. So you have the first floor and then you can go to the next floor. And the idea is to encourage, like to more kind of centralize the way things are. I mean, I don't know how to explain, but like there is a kind of a path that could let us introduce new things as we go. And so when you go to the one idea is that you have this element. Actually, you collect elements in the alpha, but they don't have purpose yet. And the idea is that in a new floor you have new elements, so you are incentivized to go to the new floor instead of staying on the first floor, even if each floor are technically infinite. I mean, finite. They are not infinite, but for human purpose, they are.
But because I know there's like costs associated with smart contracts, like storage and processing power, because there was like no real limit to growing the dungeon. Is that gonna explode the cost for like loading, or does your caching method?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, the cost. So there is, for loading the map. Yeah, that's why we do caching, because if you were to do, I mean, at the really beginning, the goal was to make it the front end on IPFS and everything. But then, okay, like we were loading the room around you only, and that was fine. But it was still actually quite slow because the Ethereum like log system is quite slow to do, and so yeah, it will have been impossible to download all the maps. So the caching, but you could also imagine having a client that cache locally instead of having a backend doing that, and then you will be fine, except for a new player that need to join. But yeah, in terms of cost, I mean, I guess the thing that make it infinite is because nobody will spend that. I mean, they could not even find enough money, I guess, to be able to reach to everywhere in the dungeon. But yeah, even though the gas is quite cheap in like in XDAI or Matic, so yeah, I mean, in the alpha it was like per action, I forgot, it was less than a cent. So then they can move quite around and then have to pay or something. I forgot the number. But yeah.
Kind of a strange question for you. What about like an integer overflow or something? even if I guess it's probably practically impossible if you don't have enough money to pay for the food or the gas. But I'm wondering how would you handle that?
So it's actually, the map is a torus map. Like, so if you go to the other side, then you go back. I mean, you go to the other side. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's overflow basically. We didn't do anything, so it's
Okay.
yeah. But actually, we had an overflow though in our alpha. I don't know if we had an issue because I mean, we were really not expecting like so many players quickly, and we didn't test that much neither. I mean, so what happened is that when you were reaching level 8 and you will go to level 9, your life will overflow. So you will go to like very low life, and it's actually only the maximum. I mean, both the maximum. So it was funny because it depends of how much your life was at that point. But
on the point of bugs, do you guys have? Because I know a lot of blockchain games, they just reset the whole thing. So how do you guys deal with new versions on Zaya? We just have like a version number, and then we save all the state processors, and then once it sees the block the admin command for the new version, then it loads the next state processor. So how do you guys keep all of the player stats without resetting the game when you do a new update?
Oh, I guess he maybe has a connection issue.
They don't seem to last that long. You think they'll either drop out or come back in. Well, I guess while we're waiting, does anyone else have any clue of how you're with smart contracts, if you're supposed to reset the whole thing, or is there a night? Oh, there he is.
Yeah, sorry, I was talking, but I was muted. Yeah, I join you on my phone now because my desktop has some issue. Yeah, you were talking about bugs and how we deal with like fixing stuff, right?
Yeah, like if you have to reset, the world, or is there a nice clean way?
I guess also like upgrading as well. Like if you have to upgrade the contracts, maybe is that what you're thinking as well, Cody?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our plan. So like for the alpha, we didn't have time for that, so we have to reset. But yeah, the idea is our contract will be upgradable, and the idea is to make it sure that later we can move it to a DAO as well. So we are thinking as well how the player will be able to basically govern the upgrade. It probably will be like progressive, like giving us maybe more importance at the beginning, and then as we move forward, like kind of the idea is to give them full control over what upgrade can go or not. Yeah, and so that will be the fixes will be like that, but we still have to make sure that the problem is the data, like the data can't be changed. So there's few things that we need to. I mean, we need to make sure that at least the base is good, and hopefully we don't need to do fix update too many times.
I guess also if you have this sort of DAO structure where you allow for the DAO to decide upon upgrades, I guess you also ideally also need to open source your backend, your caching, so such multiple players in the community can also run backends across, more and more machines.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that will. I mean, one thing that's what I mentioned on the Discord is like the idea of forkability, because if it's one thing to fork once like the contract, but if as a community you have to also re-implement everything, then is it really forkable? Like, I mean, it's so yeah. I guess this would be an important thing to.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly what I was thinking about. I know Andy and Daniel have been thinking on this, and I think they've actually you've implemented something now. The Zaya guys, you implemented this Charon, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, we have that, but that's not related to upgrades at all.
Well, so in this case, I guess what I mean is that for Ronan, if he upgrades the contract through some sort of DAO mechanism, it's great that those contracts can be upgraded with a DAO. But part of the thing is that he's, with the speed of smart contracts, how do I want to word this? Like, the world could be so gigantic that if everyone's trying to read the smart contract, it becomes very slow. And if there's only one person who controls this kind of master cache to make the game really fast, then you have this huge point of centralization. So in theory, yes, it's decentralized, but then it's almost unplayable. I mean, maybe that's unfair, but I guess you can see what I'm saying. Whereas if you have this kind of, I know in you guys where you have this kind of Charon thing where if multiple people can host clusters of data, then not everyone has to, but at least the community can do it, and the community can help to decentralize the storage, the game data.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, basically, as far as I understand the architecture of games on Ethereum, basically the core thing is you just run a full node of Ethereum or of the sidechain or whatever, and then you have everything. You just query it locally, and there is no problem with reading the map because everyone just does it from their own node. But if you then want to have something to distribute the data like this backend system, then yeah, ideally multiple people should be able to run that. And Charon is just like a solution that's ready-made to do this connection and so on. But yeah.
But with the Ethernal as well, I guess other people could run their own caches as well.
Yes. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, technically they can also have their own front end that talk to that back end and everything. But I guess the point was that if it's harder, then you give an unfair advantage to one particular fork. But yeah, I guess it could be fair enough though. I mean, it depends of the business model and everything, like, because it depends. I would say it depends of the game, and it could be that it could be like, okay, a fair game. Okay, you want to do a fork that is not the same as ours, then build, maintain, do everything that we did. So it's like, it depends, I would say.
Yeah. So I guess what I had in my head, maybe I'm wrong here, is the XDAI chain. So obviously it's a side chain. Is it like a public side chain that anyone can run a full node for, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can. Yeah, I'm sure you can run a full node, but you can't be a validator without being like part of the
like on the whitelist or something.
Yeah, like it's an agreement, because and there is no slashing mechanism. Like it's basically the reputation system. Like you lose reputation if you do something bad, but nothing else.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, one thing, for example, I mean, the main thing that will be currently with XDAI, for example, is the random generation, like, because we rely on block hash, so they can do whatever they want. I mean, we could have some statistical analysis to check how much random is their thing, but then even currently block hash are not that really random, so they will be able to have their own random number to get the monster they want, etc. But yeah, at least the nice thing about that is that at least as a creator, or like as developer of the game, we are actually independent of it, which is a big plus already. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could even look at different side chains in the future if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there any, because I know like most of the games that are coming out now are going to be like MySpace level menu games essentially, but is there any like really ambitious ideas that you guys want to try out, or that maybe you just have been thinking about? because I think those are the best. Like, because right now we know that the technology is limited for blockchain, but I always like hearing what the developers want to do after they're done learning all the bugs and tricks that are needed for blockchain tech.
You mean like making more real-time game?
Well, real time or just larger world or something more complex.
Yeah, I mean, I feel Eternal, there is a lot of scope to make it more complex. We have lots of ideas, but we will we focus on first like a version that work, and then use the upgrade mechanism to add new feature. And some of it is about what you can do in the rooms, like can you own the room, can you build stuff on the room, yeah, I think there is a lot potential. So for Eternal only, and then of course it could be other kind of game. I mean, it could be like a civilization type of game. I mean, one thing though, actually, I mentioned it briefly, like the reason why it's a PvE is because it's player against the environment, is because like if we made it where player could fight against each other, suddenly you could have very bad experience as a player, because collision could happen, people like just fighting over the newbies. And so but still there could be a scope for a game that deal with that, like yeah, it could be a strategy game. Yeah, I mean, there is lots of, I think, lots of games that could be inspired from one game I would like to look at is Mule, M-U-L-E. I never played myself actually. There is a remake now, but it's an economic game, and it could be a well match for blockchain game actually.
Don't think I know that one. Is there like a theoretical limit on the number of players that you could have?
So yes and no. I mean, we have a limitation on the potentially on the combat, where I mean, it's not really a limitation, but it's like after 10, maybe when there is 10 players fighting a monster simultaneously, then there is a chance that one of the player action will be without any effect. It's because so we could still keep track of whether he didn't. No, we will be limited to that. So basically, like let's say the monster have only one life. There is 5 players doing one action in the same block. We can still, or 10 even, we can still manage to keep track of who did the action, and so we should even reward them even if the monster was dead already. But then after that point, we can't without hitting the gas limit, we can't track of all the players that participated in that last blow. And so it's not a big deal though. It's just that we could say you miss or something like that. But apart from that, I think it will scale basically based on. I mean, the limitation will be basically the block gas limit and the blockchain network.
Okay, then I guess that's the number of players per room rather than players across the whole map.
But then the particular limit of combat, yes, but then the limit of the gas limit of the block for the
yes,
then.
of course. Sorry, yeah. So if you've got 10 players in combat all at the same time across the map concurrently, then like you have 10 different combats, that's going to hit. You're saying that's going to hit the block limit?
Actually, yeah, I mean the 10. I think we set it to 5 as something that I guess is to protect the other guy fighting in other room, kind of. It's like, so yeah, but the limit, I guess the real limit is really the network limit, like how many transactions can go through. I mean, the thing with XDAI, which I think is one of the problems, is that they guarantee a fixed gas price, but this means that what happens? Who are they censoring when we reach the gas limit? So in other network, it will just be how much you are willing to pay in terms of food to move to the next room. But again, it's not something we want for a player to have to come out, but that will be the only real solution, like the only real decentralized solution. Like, yeah, you have to pay more food this time because I mean there is a way we could say it, like we could say like there is I mean not in a dungeon, but you can imagine like if you were in a desert or something. Oh, there is a strong wind and you have to use more energy to move through that. There is a way, I think, to find a gameplay like context where the gas fluctuation will make sense. But
kind of like Eve's what was it, temporal distortion or whatever, when like they show the reason why it's laggy essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where games are really good at. I mean, that's the amazing thing about games is that you can, whatever the technology, you can always come up with way to go around the limitation in terms of like game mechanics, kind of, or game feel.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't think I actually properly appreciated that before. I mean, if you had 100 players all at the same time trying to play the game, it sounds like they could have an issue because not everyone's going to be able to get everything into the block. So if you have 100 players swinging the sword at the same time, not all of them are going to get their sword swings into the block, are they?
Yeah, that's I mean, actually we will have a lot of work to do to handle these edge cases as well. Like currently in the alpha, you will wait and potentially like forever, like actually currently I mean the thing will update, so you will see the monster dying. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, there is definitely edge case we need to care when this happen, and we should probably be at least think about it before it happens. Because obviously we want as many players as possible.
For your guys' because you said the map is procedural, is it because like Perlin noise, that is a noise that exists. Like if I make the map right, I'm not creating it as it goes. The map exists as the Perlin noise. The Perlin noise is generated in a sense, but it's the same every time you come back to it, right? So with yours, are you creating and storing it, or is it kind of like a Perlin type noise where you don't have to store it, and you would be able to, if you wanted to, just delete the entirety of the map and only regenerate that world on the side, or is it specifically based off of the blocks, the shape of the land and whatnot?
Yeah, so basically when on the room is discovered is set in stone, and so when you come back to the dungeon, you just read back from the blockchain like what. I mean, we do the cache, but technically you could just read back and see what are the room and what the exit. I mean, currently the map is very square, like very grid-like. We are going to improve that. Like we have a way to make it a lot more interesting while still keeping the same mechanism. So yeah, room will be more like different shapes and stuff, and it should look better.
There was so are you planning on, like, how long was this the graphics that you have set? Is it just the alpha graphics that you just did for this? Or are you gonna most likely keep it that way? Because I know
it's mostly that way, adding I mean, polishing like and animating more like I mean there will be also like NFTs, character NFTs. So as a way to finance the project, like we will have unique things that are color based. I mean, probably so then you will have you will be recognizable as a player, as being one of the early player or things like that.
So we've been trying to really figure out how to how to fund a small studio, right? So you mentioned that the characters is one way. I know land sales are a huge way right now to fund the development of a game. But did you have any other ideas?
I mean, yeah, the pre not much. I think that's NFT pre-sale. I think are a good one. I feel personally they're a good one, but I think it's important to have a game at least ready in some way, because I mean so many projects easily promise like, okay, buy this NFT, but then don't deliver. So it's like Kickstarter. I will not launch a Kickstarter if I was not sure I could deliver what I promised, kind of thing. I mean, at least Kickstarter, they no, yeah, I mean you have the same problem of refund and stuff. But yeah, so that's one way. I mean, the other way is thinking about how it's best to align yourself with your players. So that's why I like the fee mechanism of the food, because it's like the more player play, the more you get. So it means you are completely aligned with your players. But I'm not sure how it scales, because obviously the more the fee you take, the more it costs for the players as well. So it's I guess it's a tricky thing. It's and also because of blockchain, like actually, I'm not sure, but I think your game can be a free to play game, right? Yeah, because in
Other
our
than
case,
the transaction fee, but that's like under a penny.
okay, yeah, okay, yeah, because for us, we basically make it like, I mean, it's free in some way. It's also a transaction fee, but we make it upfront, like you pay first and then you play like that. But then it's also introduce a difficulty for. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually easier, because then if they pay upfront, then suddenly, you are already getting something.
Well, I think your point about abstracting the gas away, that I think was a really good point, because it makes it feel like a game, right? If you constantly have to check your balance, then it kind of takes the player out of the world, right? But if it's like, oh man, I'm low on food, then it kind of makes the player still keeps them immersed in the game, right? So I really like that idea of tying your action, like the transaction value, to something that's relatable to the world.
Yeah.
We've even thought about because we were thinking about doing a dungeon crawler type game, more Diablo, like the first Diablo style, where you just go down forever. And it's not to the extent where you get to choose all these, and mostly like a slot machine essentially. But one of the things I thought would be interesting would be your sword has a durability, right? But as the durability goes down, that is representing the cost of like a paying like if I'm at a slot machine, right, paying 25 cents to get loot essentially. But the sword, you've abstracted away the cost of the bet or whatnot. But I think there's a lot of different things in like food or durability or ammo that you can use, and I think you have the right way of making the players still feel immersed in the game without thinking that they have to pay more. They've already paid for it right there, so they're invested in the game, and they'll continue to do moves. And if they want to do another game with more food or whatnot, then they just pay for it. So, I definitely do you have any other ideas of how you could get the player to pay without really thinking about it, kind of like gems or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, no, actually, not more. But we were thinking also about, when you talk about land, there could be a way like you could buy rooms and stuff. Another way to potentially finance. We explore the idea of Aberger tax as well. But yeah, I think the problem is that introduce user experience issues, like especially in the blockchain world now, people are accustomed to own things, to not need to pay tax on that. So, but
One of,
yeah, I think, yeah.
yeah, one of the things we've been thinking about is getting like I know how it worked on Zaya, so like advertisement, right? So in mobile apps, you have like, oh, just watch this advertisement and you'll get like 50 gems or whatever, right? then you use those gems for whatever. So in Zaya, we were thinking about kind of like serial keys, where an advertiser has serial keys, and then after the person is done watching the video, then the advertiser gives them the serial key, and then they can upload it to a webhook, and then our admin command updates updates their account with whatever that they did. But maybe you could do the same thing with the food, where essentially the advertiser is paying for X amount of food, and then you just give it to the user.
Yeah, okay, yeah. There was also referral, like you could have a system of referral where if you go through, I mean, it doesn't really finance, but it's more like getting traction, like, or if you basically, if some player invite other players and they get something, they get a bit maybe of the food to themselves when the player join.
I guess with the advertising model, some percentage could go towards the developers, right?
Yeah, you could probably do that. We were thinking about just all of the percentage goes to, but in Ronin's like funding the player's actions for free. I guess you could just like siphon off just a little bit, so they pay to get their advertisement in front of eyes, and then the player, if they want to.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe this is what you're saying. The advertisers are paying for the food for a particular player. I don't know, say it's $1 or 10 or whatever, and maybe some of that goes to the developers of the game as well. So the more ads that are watched, the more food that a player gets, but then also means that more some percentage of that also goes to the developer just to, I don't know, keep building the game.
Or maybe even the person who's hosting the cache, they can take like a little tip for the advertisement or whatnot.
In the Brave browser, they have something similar where if you opt in to watch like ads and stuff, you get like some like Brave token, attention token. That's why it's good attention token. You're giving your attention away. So it's some similar. I don't know if I've looked at Brave.
It's called Brave Token, you said?
Brave attention token, like the Brave browser.
That.
That, yeah. The Brave browser has it inbuilt in it, so you can just, it's basically blocks all ads and stuff when you browse. But if you want to watch ads, you get money. I mean, you get the back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because literally that's what we are doing when we are watching ads, right? We are making somebody money. You don't see any part of it, but here we are seeing part of it. But I really thought that as a general principle, I just learned something today, which is, I mean, it was there, but it wasn't obvious, which is what you guys mentioned, Ronan mentioned also that abstracting blockchain specific characteristics into like gameplay mechanics, like be it transaction fees as food, or be it like the idea that it's like it's lag and you can just abstract it as kind of like some event happening in the game, or like, and it's interesting because then instead of trying to solve all the blockchain specific weird things that we always find because it's decentralized and everybody is doing everything, we don't need to solve it. We actually can go the other way around. We're like, maybe we can leverage this and make part of the story of the game. So it kind of becomes a interface between the network, how it works, and the game kind of starts talking back to each other. And that would be interesting because then it would be like we would, and this doesn't happen a lot, but I think this is happening here in the conversation, which is we would think of designing a game not as a regular game and think how it works in a blockchain, but the other way around. We would design a game thinking blockchain does give some weird, the interesting characteristics. What kind of a game would be perfect for it? So basically, even if you try to run a centralized game, that ideas, it wouldn't make that much sense. You can still, like, for example, the bat style token, you can do in a centralized way, but it doesn't make that much sense because somebody else is hosting all the things you're watching, and you're they're saying they're filling in virtual currency. You don't actually have access to it. So I think it would be cool from another angle to think, because usually when we think of the question why a blockchain game and we can have a centralized game, we have the idea of ownership and stuff. But this goes even beyond just the ownership. This is like actual fun in the game. Like the fun in the game could be because thanks to blockchain. That makes you wait and stuff. Like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely like new storytelling elements that make like you're not forcing them, but you're trying to creatively integrate them into the game.
Yeah, and even the idea of forking, you could think of abstract forking to a kind of in-game story where they could siphon off a part of the world into their own world, and then I don't know, like basically the food in the world is less or more value based on how many people are there, the network effect, the people are using it. So you can think of those ways, so people can still do all the blockchain specific things like forking and all those things without having to think of blockchains. But actually, it is blockchains, and it becomes more fun. Like it's almost like making blockchains fun, for like techie people. I know I'm not a Trumpist, but for non-techie people, that could.
Yeah, yeah. Like for like a magical type game, you could have realms instead of just forked world or whatever. Like people like
Yeah, yeah.
Or I guess in a scientific type game, you have a dimension or a portal or something like that. So yeah, that
Yeah. Even the harbinger tags that you mentioned, Ronan, I think it would, because we try to toy with that idea. We realize it will only work if it's part of the story itself. Like you don't feel like you're paying tax. Like it's something like
Yeah.
you have to keep up the maintenance of the thing. So you have to pay reward. For example, there could be a monster who, if you don't pay a certain amount every day, the monster will come and it's like you have to sacrifice something every day. That could be part of the story. Instead of thinking of it tax, you think it's just a sacrificial thing every day you have to do to keep your things alive, and that could be interesting in some storyline. You know what I mean? So then it works.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Like I know I'm gonna sound like a nerd right now, but like in Dungeons and Dragons, in Dungeons and Dragons, you can have like the god that your character worships or whatnot. So that makes a lot of sense in that context.
Yeah, and if you don't, instead of maybe you don't get the daily power that you usually get and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because why I'm saying hybrid tax, because the idea that anybody could buy something away, like you don't have a permanent ownership as long as somebody is willing to pay more tax. It's a super interesting like game mechanics if you think of it. Like you can create a sense of a challenge which might in some cases, if you build it right, increase the fun. You don't know if you still have it or not.
Actually, Arbiter tax will work well for advertisement inside the game as well, like because you could, for example, it could be that some room you can display an advertisement, and this have to be, because I think an advertisement player, I mean, will not be really a player, so the tax will make sense, but this will be outside of the game more. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, actually, just on that, I mean, I guess if you had some big advertiser who wants to pay or inject a lot of money into the game, you could inject food to every account, some small piece, and just say, it's a bountiful harvest this year. That's like the story mechanic or something. And of course, the reality is some advertiser came along and decided to spend a whole bunch on your game or something. I was just thinking about that whenever you were talking there.
Oh yeah, like if Coca-Cola wanted to do advertisement, you just put little Coke cans inside inside the world for the user to come pick up.
Yeah, this could even lead to like product placement and things like that.
I wasn't quite thinking that, but it works. I guess I was just thinking. I don't know, kind of like you watch some video, and this is purely, real world. But maybe there's some big advertiser who wants to do something combination of like they want to reward all players with some amount of money, some small amount of food, and of course people are like, oh, who's this company that's donated food to everyone, maybe I should go and click their video. So it's like an incentive to go to their website or to go to their video. They make a big splash and they make a big noise, even though you haven't done anything yet. They've just given you something for free. But of course, they want your future attention rather than the attention that you've already given them. And the end game mechanic is that, I don't know, like there was a bountiful harvest, there was more rain this year than last year or something, and there's been a bumper crop, therefore everyone's, the grain silos have overflown and everyone have some free grain or whatever. But the real world mechanic is that some big companies decided to do some advertising in your game and they want to encourage people to come look at their website. So in the real world blog, the real world news feed, it's like, hey, I don't know, Coca-Cola, say, for example, donated X number of thousands. Go check their website, go check their video. That could be a nice way, especially if you've already got a lot of eyeballs playing your game and you haven't made much money. Maybe it's attractive to say to an advertiser, hey, I have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people playing this game. Maybe you want to advertise to these nerds.
I know, Andy, you guys do like personal, like you can own a building and you put a what's it called, like a billboard over the top of it.
Yeah. So we were going to do that in like a fully decentralized sort of way. Obviously, the person who's uploaded the file could change that to something dodgy, but the way that we will do that is just the owner of the building will just say to the let's say he's selling the space, and then they'll just directly communicate over chat or whatever, and then give him the URL, and then he just does an update in the blockchain, and everybody in the front end will see that image.
That's an interesting way for players to get funds for themselves too, when you think about it, because like if it's a player-owned building, it's not necessarily the developers making money off of their game. It's the players making money off of the resources that they put in to have like little castles or forts everywhere inside the world.
Yep.
And Ronan, since you're using meta transactions, looking into GSN, like gas station network, or decentralized, who pays for the gas and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, it's actually I am involved in meta transaction already quite a lot. So I am in talk with GSN for an upcoming standard on that.
Mm-hmm.
Them, but for Eternal or for, I mean, it doesn't really matter which. This is basically the invisible part for the player. It's more like a service to the player. They could still, if they want, make the transaction themselves. Meta transaction is the thing that will allow us to make them make them think in terms of food instead of anything else. So we could implement any system really, but yeah, I mean, GSN is currently in transition anyway, so but yeah, it doesn't really matter which one we will pick.
Okay. No, because with meta transaction, since it is still like some centralization, as in where you're getting the gas from, so they could grief you or something, especially if they know if you have a lot of assets worthwhile. I mean, that's why GSN might be interesting. It's more decentralized. I mean, in theory.
Yeah, I see, but we consider it as a service. It's a bit like our backend. It's
yeah,
like
it is. Yeah.
Like the user can do transaction. We could make it compatible with GSN as well. So if they could choose to, I mean, the way we approach it is first we focus on making sure that the core is actually decentralized, so anybody can re-implement the way they want. But what we want foremost is the nicest user experience possible, and for us, as the quickest path for that is what is important to us. So after we could think about how we remove ourselves from it completely, but yeah, it's not like it's a multiple step process, I guess.
Yeah, progressive decentralization. Yeah.
I see we're 20 past 11 here. Don't know if anyone else has more questions for Ronan, or if not, we can always wrap it up.
Great stuff. Great stuff. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think he like answered everything pretty much.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Maybe we'll come back to you offline and ask you more questions.
Yeah, sure. It's good to be able to talk about it. Thank you for listening.
Cool.
And thank you for
Thanks.
presenting. Thanks.
Cool. All right,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Yep.
Take care. See you
Thank you
later.
very
Have a
much.
good
Good
weekend.
night.
Cheers.
Yeah, have a good weekend. Bye.